This is Solid Snake, and you're listening to the Mana Tank Podcast. So pay some damn attention.
Show, everybody. It is July the 15th, 2012. My name's Matt Eads. You're listening to the Mana Tank Podcast. Joined today, you're listening to the Metal Gear Podcast. Joined today, Olive Regular.
Hello.
Eric Peterson.
Hello.
And none other than David B. Hayter.
Hello.
Voice of many snakes.
Yes, that's right. More snakes than a herpetologist. Someone who studies snakes.
Oh. What about somebody who eats snakes?
That's a herpetarian.
Herbitivore?
Herpivore.
I just made it.
We'll go with his answer. I like his better.
Sounds official.
He seems more qualified to...
Yeah. So welcome, everyone, to the 25th anniversary, the Metal Gear 25th anniversary podcast, 25 years of Metal Gear, which it's no secret that Oliver and I are quite enthralled with. And we figured what better way to celebrate than to bring the voice of Metal Gear on the show.
Well, it's an honor to be here, guys. That's very cool and hard to believe 25 years has gone by so quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really, we worked it out. It's been 14 years, I think, since
Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, since Solid Snake had a voice.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and I don't, sad to say, I have never played the earlier games. So, yes, for me it has been a 14-year journey, but remarkable nonetheless.
You mean the first games in the series of the original Metal Gears on the 8-bit systems?
The MSX?
That's right.
Yeah,
I haven't had a chance to play those. Are they still available somehow, or can you get them on your iPhone or something?
On the Metal Gear 3 Subsistence Special Editions, they included those, and I think they're included. Yes, they are included in the HD collections.
HD remake for PS3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so I already have them at home.
You are missing out on just headbanging, like, toughness and the weird logic.
Most impossible nonsense-making games ever made.
Oh, awesome.
And I don't know how people, like, before the advent of the internet, I don't know how people pass that game. I swear to God.
Right. Well, he was always pretty tricky. I mean, there's the classic Psycho Mantis fight where you had to switch your controller port, and I think that frustrated and amazed many, many thousands of people around the world.
How did, I always wonder, because, I mean, back in 1998, there was the internet, but it wasn't as prevalent.
Yeah.
How many people just got stuck on that fight and were like, I can't, just turned the game off, never picked up Metal Gear again?
I don't know. My experience was unique in that I had recorded the scenes, so I knew what I had to do, so I just switched the controller port and went on. I would imagine I would have been one of those people that just got angry and smashed the controller at a certain point.
Wasn't there a codec bit that came in where they gave you kind of a subtle hint?
Yeah.
That's what you had to do?
There was. Yeah, that's true. After 4 or 5 times, Psycho Mantis comes in and says something about, switching ports or somebody, or the Colonel.
Colonel, yeah.
Try this.
Yeah, as a guy that played it as it happened, I had my share of, what the hell am I supposed to do? This guy can read my mind. I swear to God, he knew I liked Castlevania.
I know. He could read your memory card. He
could, shook my controller.
And there was the other thing where you could only get somebody's codec number by looking at the box. There was
Meryl.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm playing through Metal Gear Solid 1 right now, and I just got to that part again where it's like, look on the back of the CD case. And
they tell you to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Roy Campbell actually comes out and specifically says, maybe it's on the back of the CD case. And I remember playing it as a kid. I borrowed it from a friend, and I didn't have the case.
Right.
So I kind of hit a brick wall there, and I had to phone him up, and he was on vacation, and it was just a big mess.
It's anti-pirating.
Yeah.
We understood how important the call was.
Dave, are you familiar with Metal Gear Awesome?
Oh, hotness, I want to bang you.
Yeah, there's that bit in there where the guy sort of gives up, like, and then he talks to his buddy, like, I don't, what's he talking about, the back of the CD case or whatever? He's like, oh, the back of the literal CD case. And
and he's like, well, how am I supposed to know that?
Yeah.
It was pretty great. Yeah, Metal Gear Awesome, Chris Zimmerman, who has directed every English language version of the game, brought in Metal Gear Awesome, and she was like, "Oh my God, you have to watch this!" And we watched it in the studio when we were recording Metal Gear 3. So great! And then I hosted the Anime Expo in LA in 2008, and Ego Raptor showed up with his friend. I don't remember her name, but she was dressed as Princess Peach, and they. And so we got to meet in front of like a panel of 5 or a group of 5,000 people. It was very cool.
Ego Raptor was on last season's of
The Tester.
The Tester.
The Tester.
I don't know what The Tester is.
It's this reality show that they have on the PSN. People compete against one another to be the next PlayStation tester.
I see.
It's a little foolish. It's awfully foolish, but I actually really like watching it. Right. And Ego Raptor was actually pretty entertaining on that.
He's funny. I mean, we've talked about doing something together, but it just hasn't come together.
He makes good videos.
He does. He's a sharp guy.
Well, should we get on with these questions or what?
Sure, yeah. What? Just before we get into things, obviously you've played all the Metal Gear games.
Mm-hmm.
Does that include all the portable ones?
No. I played through, I think, half of Portable Ops, and I am about halfway through Peace Walker right now on the high-def version. And then the other ones, the card games, I didn't really play because I wasn't really in them, and it's more of a, self-interest that drives me, rather than a desire for good gaming. It's just a desire to hear, how good I am in some places and how horrible I am in other places, just to sort of torture myself. Which is actually not true. I'm being glib. I love the games and they're amazing, but I just didn't have much use for my PlayStation Portable. I prefer the console games.
You and everybody else.
Yeah, story of the Portable's life.
I literally only bought the PSP for Metal Gear games.
Mm-hmm.
And
is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
The same with me. When Peace Walker came out, I bought a PlayStation Portable to play Peace Walker.
Well, I bought it also to play Peace Walker, and then 2 weeks later I received a camouflage PSP in the mail from Mr. Kojima with the games included, and I ended up not having had to buy it. But, so I think I have three PlayStation Portables at home, 2 of which have never been opened.
Should raffle those off or something.
I should do.
With that, put a lock of your hair in the box.
That's right.
And eBay.
The David Hayter hair edition.
I can just picture Mr. Kojima sort of trolling eBay.com, and then he sees David Hayter's PSP. Like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah. That's probably an accurate assessment.
How closely did you work with Kojima when... laying down the dialogue for Snake?
Very little. He's usually in Japan. He came out... I think I met him on the first one briefly. I mean, he came and visited and said hello, and we exchanged little gifts, and he wanted me to sign a Guyver doll for him, I think.
Oh yeah,
action figure, and so he liked me from the Guyver, and but it's really, I think his main focus is the Japanese side of the games, and I know he's very involved with that. And then by the time it gets to us to record the English side, the game is usually pretty much done. When we did Metal Gear 4, it wasn't quite as finished. It was a little more simultaneous, and we're constantly in contact with the producers in Tokyo to determine whether a line should go this way, whether it should go that way, and what have you. But really, I've met Mr. Kojima maybe 4 or 5 times over the past 14 years, and usually it's a social thing. I mean, I ran into him at an award show, or he came to show me the gameplay on Metal Gear 4 last time we were around, and he came in with two translators and a laptop all set up to play the game, and so he showed me and then went on his way. He's an enigma even to me.
We saw him at the...
Very nice.
We saw him actually at E3. We didn't get a chance to actually talk to him, but he just kind of appeared out of the woodworks at E3. We were at the Sony press conference at the pre-show party, and
he got off a public bus, like an LA public bus. He just walked off the bus.
It was the craziest thing to see, because everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's Kojima!" And it's like, why would Kojima be getting off of a public transit bus? And sure enough, there he was taking pictures of people, and then he just went in and sat down at a table and had a few beers, and next thing you know, he was gone.
Right. He's like a Japanese gaming spirit or something. He probably owned that bus,
Probably owned that street of L.A.
Lots of things that's, funky and interesting, which it would be.
Interesting, man. Let me see your sheet here, Oliver.
Well, maybe before we get into like the questions about Metal Gear proper, maybe a lot of people don't know this, but something that is kind of interesting is like, how did you fall into the role of Solid Snake?
Well, I had, I think it was a number of elements. In fact, something just occurred to me while we were talking about it. What happened was, my first voiceover job in Hollywood was I did an episode of Major Dad where I guest starred as a Russian kid, army brat, and then Helen Hunt's father, Gordon Hunt, is a big voiceover animation director. So he saw the taping and he hired me to do a Russian on a couple of episodes of Captain Planet.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I came in, and that was really cool. And so I went in, I worked with all the Planeteers, and it was just a blast. And the casting director on that was Chris Zimmerman, who 5 years later was directing Metal Gear. And my friend Jennifer Hale may have mentioned my name to her. She remembered me. They brought me in, and I auditioned, and I just got the job, which was very, very, very fortuitous because I had no money. And so it came at a very good time. And it's occurring to me now that I may have gotten the job because Kojima was a Guyver fan, that he knew who I was from Guyver and then hired me from that. But that just came to me, so I don't know if that's true or not. But, he definitely knew about the Guyver and the movie I had done in '93 or whenever it was. So that's how it was. I mean, I went in, and I think, me and 12 other guys auditioned for it, and they gave it to me.
So when you got the job, did you have any foresight of like how big this was ultimately going to end up being?
A little bit. I knew, they had all the artwork up on the walls, the original artwork that you see, in the CD case and the promotional material. So, I could see that the artwork was really beautifully done and looked like they were presenting a big game. And then at a certain point, one of the producers played for me the cutscene from when the Hind D crashes. I'm up on the roof of that building, and the Hind D goes down, and it's just this big spectacular thing. And it was the first game where your polygonal player character went straight into the cutscenes. That's why he didn't have much of a face in the first one, because cutscenes back then, you would go and it would suddenly be a movie that looked so much better than the gameplay. Mm-hmm. Well, this was the first where gameplay and cutscene were interchangeable. You just went straight from one end to the other. So I did get a sense early on that it was a big game, that they were putting some money behind it, and that they were really taking great care to do something groundbreaking. And then when we were recording it, we had really good voice actors, and I felt very good about Snake's voice and trying to create something original. And so I had a sense that it was going to be successful. I didn't have any sense that it would go on for 14 more years and 9 more games and become sort of the defining element of my acting career. But I'm grateful that it has, certainly.
On that, do you sort of resent? Because I know you like writing. You've obviously written a couple of the screenplays. For X-Men, the 2 X-Men's, Scorpion King and The Watchmen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good job on those, by the way. I love those movies. Do you sort of resent that you are known as, despite that stuff and despite all your other acting jobs or whatever, do you sort of resent that people only know you as Solid Snake?
Yeah, not at all. No, it's awesome. It's badass. I mean, it's so funny because, you were talking about, say it was your friend that was, turning red, talking to me for the first time and getting, all of that. Snake has such an impact on people because you spend hours and hours and months of your life living through a massive, extended adventure with this guy. And so I get it, because I'm a gamer and because I'm a fan. I understand how impactful that can be on someone, and it's very, very cool that I have something in my career that affects people like that. People don't really realize that I'm primarily a writer. I'm actually up here directing a film, so I'm a writer and a producer and a director, and I am, pretty successful at that. That's my job and my primary career. Snake and the acting jobs and things like that, that's just pure fun for me, So it's not like my whole life is Solid Snake. When I meet people, the bulk of what I'm known for is that. But, the other side of my life, I'm constantly meeting with, the heads of studios and big producers, actors, all these Hollywood people, and they don't have any clue what about my other job. I met the first time I met David Goyer, who's a great, immense screenwriter. He was introduced to me as another big screenwriter, and he said, yeah, but don't you have a side job doing Solid Snake? And I said, yes, I do. And he was like, oh my God, dude, that is the most badass side job for a writer I've ever heard. And I was like, yeah, I have to agree. It's pretty awesome. So, it's not like if I were an actor and and that was my only thing, and nobody saw me as anything else but Solid Snake, I might get a little frustrated with that. But for the life that I have, it's just pure fun, and it's just immensely gratifying to have this aspect of it.
Cool. Very cool. Did you see any of these that you want to ask him?
These are all straight from the swag's mind, if you will. So, why not?
It's debunked. It's a debunked.
Yeah, I'm just moderating. The moderator. Can we get back on topic, please?
Where are we? Of all the snakes, now you mentioned that Metal Gear 3 was your favorite, and it's mine too. But of all the snakes, which one is your favorite? To perform as?
Between Solid, Naked, and Solid in disguise as
Snake,
Iroquois Pliskin.
Yeah, and Old Snake. Which one did you have the best time kind of performing?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the first one, the Shadow Moses incident was so much fun and really such an opportunity for me that I really, the whole thing was just great. It's a complex question. So I loved playing, going back and playing Big Boss before it was playing Naked Snake was really, really fun because I could sort of get rid of all of Solid Snake's baggage. Solid Snake just gets boned from birth to premature death.
Just being used by the government all over the place.
He's just a clone and gets these horrible diseases and all this stuff. So going back and playing Naked Snake in the late '60s, he didn't have any of that yet. He was just an idealistic soldier, and he wanted to go out and be a hero. And it was, so it was very freeing. So when I followed that up with Old Snake, that was really depressing. It was tough to. I tried to do a thing where my voice would deteriorate through the game. Where he'd just get older and older, and his voice would just, his vocal cords are coming apart, and so I really was very invested in that game, and I think it's amazing, but it sort of breaks my heart all the way through, and so in terms of fun, I'd say the first one and the third one were the most fun, but in terms of who I really feel for more, I think it's Solid Snake. Big Boss is the Big Boss, and he's a little more in control, where Solid Snake is such a victim of the shifting winds of his fate, and he very rarely gets a fair deal. So I think I sympathize with him more.
Just kind of because we touched on Old Snake, was there ever any part, when recording it, where you sort of like raised an eyebrow, like, huh? Like they come in and they're like, oh, this game around Snake is 75. Like, oh.
No, I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, it was surprising, as it was for everybody, but I thought it was a really original way to make this character different. It's like, he's essentially, all of those people you're talking about are essentially the same person, at least genetically. So they're going to have some of the same basic inclinations. They're going to have the same vocal cords. They're going to have the same things. And yet the way Mr. Kojima presents it all, it always feels fresh. It always feels original. So I thought the Old Snake thing was a very cool idea. I think it was beautifully executed, like, the old face, but the young, strong body, and
he had a great ass, that Old Snake,
and the badonkadonk,
firm,
unaffected by cellular degeneration, if I may say, and then the chance to change the voice up like that was really fun. So no, I thought it was really cool.
What about, like, was there any moments where you kind of you just took a step back from the mic and were like, okay, this is crazy. Like, why does Snake have infinite ammo now? What?
Well, no, I always appreciate infinite ammo as a gamer. I'm not as stealthy as I'd like to be in real life, so very often I just end up killing everybody that's available and then wander around.
That's how I do it.
Picking up what I need, But, yeah, well, look, I had a big controversy in 2008 at that same Anime Expo where I said that I had disagreed with the moment where he puts the gun in his mouth and his hands are shaking. He's supposed to kill himself, but his hands are shaking. And he's sort of freaking out, and then the screen goes black, and you hear bang. And then he comes back, and he's okay.
He blows his eardrums out.
Well, he's missed or something. I don't know what it was. So I said, well, first of all, I don't have any respect for a guy who spends his whole life killing thousands of people with ruthless efficiency, and then when it's time to kill himself, he's too afraid to do it. I just don't believe that my understanding of Snake would do that. I think he'd just put the gun in his mouth, pull the trigger, and he's on his way.
Be done.
Second, I don't understand why he would pull the trigger if he wasn't aiming at his face anymore. And so I brought those things up, and I just begged them to, reconsider that. But like I say, the game is pretty much done by the time it gets to me. So there's very little that can be changed. And then when I said that at the Anime Expo, I still stand by those opinions, but it's just my opinion. And then people were like, "Oh my God, Hayter hated Metal Gear 4, and he just thought it was badly written or whatever." And I was like,
out of context.
Yeah, and it turned into this big stupid controversy. And I said, "Look, I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller myself. I'm different from Mr. Kojima. I couldn't write the things that he writes, and sometimes I'll think it's a great idea. Sometimes I'll be like, I don't know. But either way, it's Kojima's game. Whatever he writes is exactly right. I couldn't conceptualize a world this twisted and unusual and completely original. So, big thunder crash there.
It's the wrath of Kojima. He knows you're talking about him.
Yeah. So, it's the outrage from the internet going out right now. There are things that, like the fact that Meryl marries Johnny Sasaki, the diarrhea kid, instead of Snake, who gets to go off to the branch and die. I wasn't big on that from a character perspective, but it's the story. I'm not writing the story. I'm living the story. I just do what they tell me to do. So that's the basic thing. So yeah, I'm sure there's other things that, it's a weird game. Sometimes I'm like, wow, really? This is where it's going? But okay,
So I just kind of building on that too. I grew up with the Metal Gear game.
I'm sorry. Before you go on, there is a massive thunderstorm moving in over me. So if I suddenly disappear, it's because the power's gone off. It's not that I got sick of your...
That's what all the actors say.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone's banging pots in the back. And I'm like, oh, thunder.
Yeah. Oh, I might be gone.
I'm driving through a tunnel, boys. I'm probably going to cut out.
Yeah.
So I grew up with the Metal Gear games. I bought all of them when they first came out, and I feel like I have a good understanding of what it was, or at least I thought I did until I met one Oliver Aguilar here, and he has just completely destroyed all of my expectations for what there is to know about Metal Gear.
A true expert.
Through and through. There was a series of like 30 podcasts in a row where that's all we talked about.
He actually teaches a course at Yale on Metal Gear.
Yeah, they have me in every year.
He's an adjunct
professor.
Really?
No, Dave. But
Yale.
I would love for you to endorse it. I would love to have you in one of my seminars.
I'll come in and do a guest lecture.
I guess my question for you is, obviously you're living the game rather than whereas we're playing the game as gamers. How well do you understand the storyline and everything that's happening in this insane world that Kojima has crafted?
Well, it's interesting. I read all the scripts. I'm in almost every bit of the games. So I get to read every branching idea, storyline, all that stuff you may never hit on in the game. You may just miss one branching conversation or one event that is buried in the game. So I see all that stuff, and I get a lot of information just sort of that I just read off the page. But at the same time, in the meantime, I've worked on, many, many screenplays and television scripts and many other stories of my own and others that I've adapted. So I know the world very well, but I don't know it to Oliver's level. I would not be a professor emeritus,
I'm going to soundbite that, and I'm going to put it all over the internet.
Don't worry, nobody knows it to the level of Oliver.
But just as like a sort of a confirmation, David B. Hayter totally bows down to me in Metal Gear knowledge.
That's what he just said.
Yes.
Yep.
We heard it.
Yeah, I don't think I mentioned bowing in any way.
Quote unquote, not fit to lick your boots.
Dave, it's how the internet works.
Listen, Oliver, you're certainly fit to lick my boots. No. I don't. So to give you an example, I had thought that Eva was my mother, and then
Solid Snake's mother?
Yeah.
You might have thought correct.
That is true.
Oh no, it is true. So who was Ocelot's mother? I got this messed up.
The boss.
No, that's what I thought. I thought the boss was my mother all the way through that game. Like, even when I was playing it, I thought, oh, she's going to be Solid Snake's mother, and that there was some whole twisted mother thing. And then somebody goes, no, that's Ocelot's mother. I was like, what? Where did that come from? Well, there's in a scene that I wasn't in.
I think there's like one line in a codec conversation somewhere that's like there's so much more than just lovers, and you're like, oh, like they're not, because they totally come off as like mother-daughter. Like they have this super enigmatic mother-son. Super enigmatic relationship, and you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff that she, and they keep calling her the mother of special forces and stuff. And so, I don't know, I just playing through the game and recording it, it seemed clear to me that she was the eventual progenitor of Solid Snake. And then it turned out to be Eva. And so it's stuff like that I get wrong or don't. I mean, I just don't have enough RAM in my head to hold all of the twisted details of this world together, which might be disappointing to some fans, but I do know it pretty well. I mean, I can have informed conversations about the, genetic lines of Metal Gear, but it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
It's weird. It's really weird stuff. Like, even when I'm trying to explain this to people, I sort of step back and listen to myself trying to explain it. And I'm like, this is absurd. What am I even talking about?
He's got to spot a guy who's a clone. He's got to stop the nukes because his other clone's going to launch the nukes, but their father's controlling everything.
And if they don't find the genetic material from his father's corpse, which has been taken over to the thing, then they're not going to be able to stop the nukes.
And only the fake corpse was burned because there was another clone who was a perfect clone. He's like, God, what am I saying? Like, this is the craziest thing.
You could fall into a pit of insanity just discussing Gray Fox, and where he comes from and how he's connected to the whole thing. Yeah. And he's barely in it,
Yeah, he's never. I still have my bets placed that there will be an upcoming game featuring Gray Fox.
Yeah, I hope so. He's a pretty cool character.
Very awesome character.
Yeah. If you're hoping for hints from me, nobody tells me squat. So, I until the day I go in to start recording, I am as in the dark as anybody.
Yeah, I get that from your tweets and all your interviews and stuff where people are hounding you for information.
Yeah, they're like, is Solid Snake in Metal Gear 5? And I'm like, I have no idea.
So how far in advance do you get notification that you're going to be doing some voice acting for a Metal Gear game?
Well, they do it. It's really, not long, like a few weeks before I'm supposed to start recording, which can be problematic because, like, when we were doing Metal Gear 2, they called me to do Metal Gear 2. I was writing the Hulk and Chronicles of Riddick at the same time. Now, just for full disclosure, the eventual movies did not reflect the scripts that I wrote for those movies.
Chronicles of Riddick was good.
Well, that's fine. It was very, very different from what I've written. So I don't want people assigning me credit for David Tui's work or Ang Lee's work or whatever. It's like I wrote those movies and then they were completely rewritten. But nonetheless, I was right in the middle of both of them. And then I think on Metal Gear 3, I was working on Iron Man and something else, X-Men 2 or I don't know, something. So I'm always extremely busy, and I'm like, and right now I'm about to go direct a movie. So I told them, I was like, if you're going to come to me to do this, you have to let me know in advance so we can work it out schedule-wise. I can't just walk off the set and do 8 months of recording for the game just because that's the way you've got it scheduled. So, it does get a little dicey how in the dark I am, sometimes. So we're trying to figure that out early this time.
Yeah, I read a story, and it was a story about Quentin Flynn, the guy who does Raiden's voice.
Yes.
And Metal Gear Rising was mentioned a couple years ago, and we all assumed that the production was happening, the game was being developed. But there was a story that said that Quentin Flynn had not been informed about doing the voice just yet. I think you were involved with the story. Do you recall what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. Well, Quentin called me, and
yeah,
he was upset, and he wanted to discuss it with me, and Quentin's a friend and a very talented guy, and I think he's sort of inextricably linked with Raiden. So, but there wasn't much I could do about it. I mean, I sympathized with him and told him, get in touch with Konami and discuss it with them. But beyond that, wasn't much I could do. They don't really listen to me.
Just a shoulder to cry on.
That's just it, right? They don't give you a heads up. They'll literally call you one day and be like, hey, we need some lines.
Dave, we need you to fly down to Japan here to lay down this VO.
Yeah, well, that would be great. All of it's been done in Southern California. I'd rather go to Japan, but I mean, or people ask me because I'm a screenwriter, how much influence do you have on the story? And I'm like, none. I mean, if I say, look, I think he'd say and here instead of if, they have to call Japan and get that cleared. I mean, every syllable laid out to the timing of the game, to the timing of the cutscenes, all that stuff. So I don't have any impact on that, and that's fine. I mean, I am on this series as an actor only. I mean, now and again I'll say, hey, can I say this? It might be a little cooler, and as long as the syllables all fit, they'll let me do it. But I am strictly an actor, and as an people get the wrong impression of when you see the lead in a game or a movie or whatever, you see so much of me in that game that you think, oh, I must have this massive input on it. But that is not the case. They work on the games for years and put together this massive operation, and they come to me and I work on it. They come to me and say, we need you to record in a couple of weeks, and I come in and I put in, it was 10 days on the first game, and it was about 8 months on the final game.
Wow.
On Metal Gear 4. So,
wow.
So I'm just, I'm a workhorse. I come in and I do it, and I try to do it great, and I love the job, and that's my involvement.
One of the questions I always had for voice acting, especially Metal Gear Solid more so than others, is that in certain games with voiceovers, you can tell that one person went into the room, did their lines, and then like 3 or 4 days later, somebody else went in and did the responding line to that.
Right.
So they're not acting with each other. Was that the case with the Metal Gear games? Because I feel like the acting is so spot on with all that. It's really interactive with the different actors. So were you actually in the studio with people that you were talking with at the time?
Yeah, and that's something that I do try to make sure is going to happen. There's two things that I try to insist on because they just make the game so much better, and that is, one, I need to be able to see what Snake is doing, how he's moving, what action he's taking while he's saying the lines, and I can make it sound like I'm moving my body that way. Like, for example, with Metal Gear 4, he's old. So when he gets up out of a chair, it should have a, like a little, just creaky old man sounds, things like that. It just gives, or when he pulls himself up onto a ledge, it takes a little more effort than it does.
Struggling, yeah.
Solid, it's like, and you hear, and I can put in little sounds of like, Jesus, my muscles are seizing up, or whatever. So I like to have that, because we didn't have that on Metal Gear 3. On Metal Gear 3, all we had was the timing of each line. So if you watch Metal Gear 3, I'm acting with the other actors in the room, but I can't see what my body's doing. So very often his body will be in an aggressive position, and I'm doing a more neutral delivery. It's just not as good. And then the other joy of this job for me is I sit in the booth And for each of those scenes, those amazing scenes, they bring in these incredible top-notch voice actors who just come in and they do their scenes with me, and then they leave, and somebody else comes. Steve Blum will come in and he'll do his scenes, and he'll be amazing, and he'll go on his way. And they just bring in actor after actor to do these scenes, and it's great. And so, I very much, sometimes I record off sync with those people. Somebody, just schedule-wise, somebody will come in, do their scenes, and I have to do it with them, or I put mine down first. And I try to put a great deal of effort into making it sound like I'm coming off of somebody's sentence, which is a specific skill that I have tried to develop for this, so it'll all sound interactive. But for the most part, I'm in the room doing the scenes with people, and that gives it so much more life and reality.
What's your relationship like with the other actors? I mean, are you guys all great friends, or are you like sick of seeing Christopher Randolph for 120 hours every game?
Oh yeah, it's the worst. The thing is, it's like you're in a booth. So is personal hygiene beyond your capability? I don't. No. I'm very good friends with Christopher Randolph. He actually lives in New York and flies out to LA to do Otakon. They fly him out. It's a great gig, and so I have a blast with Christopher. I think Christopher and I have the funniest exchanges in the game. We just have this long running. The relationship between Snake and Otakon it's like Abbott and Costello. It's just super fun, and so we do a lot of joking around. We do a lot of like outtake lines and expanding on our romance lines, things like that. Jennifer Hale is one of my very best friends and one of the greatest voice actresses in the world. And we're friends outside of the voiceover world. Like, we all went skiing. Her family and my family went skiing not too long ago. And Kim My Guest, who's Mei Ling, is an old friend of mine. Debbie Mae West I only know from the games, but she's a delight, and we have a great time hanging out. And then some of them I don't really know very well at all. They come in for a few days, and we have a great time, and then they go away, and that's the actor's life.
Can you tell Jennifer Hale that I loved her in Mass Effect?
I will tell her that.
She did a great job in that game.
She'll be like, oh, so Matt feels that way. Very good. Was that Matt?
That was Oliver.
Oh, Oliver.
Matt also feels that way, though.
His knowledge of Metal Gear his knowledge of Mass Effect is only rivaled by his knowledge of Metal Gear.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I will let.
Thank you very much.
Jennifer know. I'll type her an email, right?
A question I've always wondered was, what was your inspiration for Solid Snake when you first went in there? He's obviously just a combat veteran, but you gave it the gravelly voice, just a hard gravelly voice. What made you do it that way? Was that your first thought to go in that direction, or did you try a few things?
No, I auditioned with another voice, a lot closer to my own voice, but I was young at the time. Fortunately, I got over that. And I sounded young, I sounded like a young hero, and I figured that's what they wanted. But then, they said it was 2 weeks between the audition and when I came in to record the thing. And I had all the materials. In the meantime, I had the script, I had a bunch of the artwork, I had all these things to go over. And then when I was reading the script, I was like, this guy's already retired. I mean, he's gone, and not only retired, but he's bought a ranch in Alaska and races sled dogs. This is a guy who is actively escaping his past as a soldier, and now they're bringing him back into it. So it seemed to me that he'd be a lot harder, a lot more cynical than I was at that time. I'm catching up with him now, but he, it was all about that, why did you bring me back here? And I wanted to have, and then it just sort of developed. I didn't, so I started doing this harder voice, but I didn't want it to be to Clint Eastwood, and I really didn't want it to be Kurt Russell from Escape from New York, because clearly that was an influence.
Yeah.
So Kurt Russell in Escape from New York, it's one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. I watch it, at least once a year, and he's got call me Snake, call me Snake, and it's something, I don't know, something like that. It's a lot more whispery. It's almost like he won't raise his voice, and so I didn't want to do that. And then it was too Clint Eastwood what I was doing, so I just took it further, and I just said, okay, gravelier. Let's really, do something. And it wasn't really, it was a video game, so it wasn't really intended to be a real person's voice. I wanted to sort of give a video game experience voice, you know what I mean? And then I came in, and so I did it, and we started recording. We did the whole first day before Chris played back for me my original audition, and it was totally different. I was like, well, I hope they're not going to be upset by how much I've changed this from what they hired, but they weren't. They were fine, and the rest is history.
Plus, the guy smokes
non-stop.
Yeah, he smoked
like crazy.
He's I mean, I didn't figure he was older. I figured he was probably in his, mid to late 30s, but he's retired from Special Forces, so he's seen a lot, he's done a lot, and he's just over it, so that's what I wanted it to sound like, a guy who had been just stomped into the gravel for 20 years and then just said enough, and then now he's coming back,
To get stomped even more.
To get stomped in ways he can't even imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
And then microwaved.
Yeah, that was grueling.
What a great scene.
Yeah, it was hard to play. I mean, it was...
Yeah, you felt his pain, right? Mashing that triangle button, you felt it
Literally.
Oh, yeah. Well, not only that, but
carpal tunnels.
I can't play the game without my diaphragm seizing up and my larynx dropping into my my guts. I'm just... Every time he gets hit by a bullet or gets electrocuted, I feel it in my internal organs, so it really is has a lot of it takes a big toll on me.
That's funny because we mentioned before you came on, we were sort of joking between us, like, well, I wonder if David knows where the line is between David Hayter and Solid Snake. So you just answered that for us because you feel every bullet, every bruise.
I do, except he's not me. We just share the same vocal cords, the same body, I very much, he's got my inherent viciousness, and he's got,
would you say that he's a clone of you, maybe? What are we getting to here?
No, he's his own thing. I was just watching, I mean, this all sounds like actor nonsense, and it is to a certain extent, but I'm in a film that's coming out at the end of this year called The Devil's Mile. I play a mafia psychopath, and I'm watching it, and he's got this weird mustache and different hairstyle and all this stuff, and I forgot it was me, and then the credits came up and it said and starring David Hayter. And I was like, oh, what did I do in this? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm that horrible guy, but some characters are so unique and unto themselves that I feel like I step in and I just let him go. I go into the booth, my brain checks out for a while, and Snake just takes over and goes and does his thing. So it's not like a clone, it's like being a schizophrenic, like having a completely different personality.
So you established this, this pretty unique voice for a Metal Gear Solid, and then I don't know the numbers. However many years later, you guys came back and actually did Twin Snakes.
It was probably a year or two later.
Was it just... It was after Metal Gear 2 came out, wasn't it?
Yes.
Twin Snakes.
Which was only a couple years after 1.
Okay, yeah. But, I mean, that was... Correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, totally did all the voice work again, right?
Yeah, we had to re-record it all again, and I was like, you guys already have this. Why are you... And, and I was... Well, never mind about that. It cost more to hire me at that point than it did for the first one. So I was like, well, why are we doing this? And they said, because the house where we recorded Metal Gear 1 which should be a shrine, that all of us should be visiting every now and again. It's just this little.
I wasn't aware, but
Yeah, it's a little house on Orange Street in Hollywood, and it's been converted. The living room was converted into a sound studio, but it wasn't converted into a very good sound studio, and so they said that the sound card on the GameCube was so much better than the original PlayStation that you could now hear the traffic going by, like motorcycles pulling up the stop sign outside the house over the whole track. So that's why we had to re-record.
Because I'd always, the sticking point with me is that in Metal Gear Solid, Jennifer Hale has a British accent, and then in Twin Snakes, she just is Jennifer Hale.
Yeah, they made her do that. I mean, she's such a pro, she wouldn't want to have done that, but I never really understood why that was.
It's probably for the best.
I think they also changed up Mei Ling, didn't they?
Mei Ling also lost her accent.
Yeah.
And something changed too with Ocelot, didn't it? I know the naming, maybe just the name in the credits was different. I know there was some kind of difference there.
I don't know. I think he was the same. I think it was always Patrick.
I know that. I'm sorry, Dave. I know that a lot of you guys went with pseudonyms for the original Metal Gear. And then subsequent ones, you guys started going with their real names.
Correct.
And yours was...
Don Barker.
Yeah, and that was a callback to your Guyver name?
That's right. That was the character I played in Guyver. So I wanted some way for fans to figure out that I was me.
Why the pseudonym? Is that just that was just how it was done back then, or?
It was a union non-union thing.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah,
never would have made that connection.
That's why. Also, sometimes people will use pseudonyms because they're famous for one character that wouldn't say or do the horrible things they're going to do as another character. So sometimes people come in and be somebody else. And there are a couple of examples of that in Metal Gear. We were different pseudonyms. And then the other thing they changed was Gray Fox, who was one guy in the first game and a different guy in the second game. And the guy in the first game, they were both great. The guy in the first game, I was like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. And they, for whatever reason, they couldn't get him back and had to replace him. So
yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, it was a shame. He was good.
Well, we're just about out of time with you here, Dave. Just before we leave, some of our listeners have written in just a couple short questions here, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
I am going to butcher this name. Valtteri writes in. He wants to know what is the most odd, weird, awkward, or unusual run-in with fans you have ever had, excepting this podcast.
I would say every single one has been just stranger than the last. No, I don't know. What has been the weirdest? I think, I've told this story before, but it was pretty cool. I was coming back from Toronto, flying back to Los Angeles, and I was here on movie business. And like I say, movie business is my business. That's what's on my mind. I just, I'm not constantly thinking about Snake, and so, which would be weird if I was. So I'm coming back, and I get, just the big mid-40s, built like a brick, glowering customs guy. And so I go up and I give him my passport, and he said, "Were you here for business or pleasure?" And I said, "Business." And he said, "What do you do?" And I said, I'm a screenwriter." And he goes, "You don't do any voices for video games, do you?" And I said, yes, I do. And he was like, "Oh my god!" And he fell apart. This guy. He he was like, "Oh, I can't even believe I'm meeting you." And he shook my hand, and he was like, "Best games I ever played, man." And then full body cavity search. I thought was out of line, but I guess he was really a fan, So no, there was no cavity search. He let me go, but that was pretty cool. I think that's the thing of it. Like, it's so weird to me. When I was up I was at the Fan Expo in Vancouver, and I signed autographs for. I don't do it very often, but when I do, I try to sign for everybody. I try to make sure everybody gets a chance to hang out. And this guy and his brother came up to me. They had to be in their early 20s, and they were literally weeping, like, tears of joy or tears of snakiness or whatever it is. I don't know. And I'm like, I get being affected by a video game character, but I'm like, dude, chill out.
It's gonna be okay. We're gonna get you through this.
We'll get you through it. And I just don't see myself as a, it's not like Tom Cruise or Harrison Ford or these epic legendary guys. I mean, I get that people are attached to it, but I'm just a dude, man, and it's.
I don't know. Coming from an avid gamer, though, I think that it's all perspective. It's all relative. I mean, a lot of people that like movies, they really like those A-list actors, but people that are into video games, like, I don't know if I speak for everybody, but for the longest time, your name was the only name that I truly knew as a voice actor in video games from childhood until just a few years ago. And when people would say, "Hey, who's a video game voice actor?"
Nolan North.
Until Nolan North came around and started doing every game under the sun, it was David Hayter. That's what my friends and I knew as the voice of video games.
It's so funny because when I got Metal Gear, that's when I pretty much quit acting for 10 years. I did Metal Gear, but that was the only thing I did, and so to be that well known for it was very funny to me. But yeah, I get it. I get why the games have such an impact on you, and you really are immersed in them more than you are into your average film, and certainly for a lot longer. So I do get it, but it's just surprising to me when grown men are weeping to meet me, and I'm like, I don't think they're gonna. I think it's going to be a little. It's going to pale in comparison to whatever you're imagining is going to happen.
Dave, spoilers. If we ever meet, I will probably be weeping. So let's put that on the table so it's not weird when it happens.
Not at all. I always carry a Kleenex, and I'm always prepared for the bro love. I mean, that's the thing, like, I always find it fun when when the girls are all into me and they're like, "Oh my God, you're Solid Snake," and like, that's really cool. But the amount, I've had more men come up to me and say, "Look, I'm not gay, but I just love you, dude." That happens to me so much more than I ever thought it would in my life. It's very flattering.
That's funny.
But I just don't speak that way.
I think we've answered most of these questions here. The last one I'll hit you with here is Ever writes in. He wants to know, is there any, and obviously this is picking from a huge pool of, 18 years or whatever we said it was. Is there a line that you say in a game that you would consider your absolute favorite?
Well, I do love the line, I never thought an analyst of military technology could be so cute. That was one of my favorites.
I just played that one the other night.
Yeah, Snake's a charmer in that first game.
Yeah, there's just something. He's just like, he's using his military knowledge to hit on girls, and I thought that was really fun. And my other favorite was when I played. This wasn't from a game, but it was when I played Captain America on the mid-'90s Spider-Man series, and I had to say the line, "Come on, team, let's win one for democracy." I thought that was just a character-defining moment. So, yeah, those are. I mean, there's lots of them, and people ask me to say them, but I can't think of them now.
Well, that is all the questions that we have. I mean, tons of people wrote in. Thanks to everybody who did, but we just ended up answering them through the course of our conversation. Thanks so much, David, for taking the time to come and talk to us.
It was my pleasure. It was super fun and a great honor to be here. So I hope your audience got a pretty comprehensive answer to most of their questions. Thank you again for having me.
Just before we leave here, anything that you were working on that we should be aware of for the future? Devil's Mile was a movie you said coming out.
Yeah, Devil's Mile is being is in post right now and should come out at the end of the year. And I think it's going to be a really, really cool, twisted, indie horror movie. I'm up in Toronto to direct my movie Wolves, which looks like we're going to go to camera September 6th, if things don't go horribly wrong, as they can do. And I guess those are the big upcoming ones that I can talk about.
Great. So watch out for those. Thanks again, and we'd love to have you back after Metal Gear 5. When and if.
Yeah, well, just let me know via my Twitter.
Absolutely. Do you want to plug your Twitter?
Yeah, my Twitter is at David B. Hayter. I have about 11,500 followers, so if you find that one, that's me.
There you go.
All right. Well, thanks so much, guys. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, thanks.
It's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.